Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. This week, I don't know what's happening, as always, now that I'm not working and I never have a plan, but I do have a plan for my reading. In fact, I've kind of already started. So the physical book that I'm going to be reading is Elantris by Sanderson. This is me beginning my Cosmere reread where I try to really pay attention to all the details because I feel like I've read some of the Cosmere, but I haven't picked up on enough of the details. So then when there's references between books, I don't always pick up on them, and I want to pick up on more of them. Also, I really like Elantris, so I'm excited to reread that, and also the Mistborn trilogy and a whole bunch of other ones that I really enjoyed. So, it's a good reread excuse. But anyway, I'm starting with Elantris. I think this would be my third reread, but most of the other times I have at least read most of it via audiobook. This one I'm going to try and stick it out physically, and I'm going to try and take notes while I read it so that I can remember those details in the future, because my memory, not so great. But if I put something in Notion, I'm much more likely to remember it. So if you don't know, Elantris is Brandon Sanderson's, I guess, his first published novel. We're primarily following three characters. So far all I've read is the first three chapters, which is one chapter for each of them. We got Prince Raoden, and I can never decide if it's spoilers because it's straight away told to you in the first chapter. So is it spoilers? It's not on the back of the book. But also it's the first sentence of the first chapter. I'll read you the first sentence. Prince Raoden of Arelon awoke early that morning, completely unaware that he had been damned for all eternity. So in Elantris, there's used to be this beautiful city where people would suddenly be changed into these beautiful godlike people with shiny skin, and they would live forever or nearly forever, and they could do all this magic to heal people and do cool things. And then one day something happened. There was a big cataclysmic type event, and suddenly instead of people becoming these beautiful godlike people, they instead become zombie-ish. So they get all bruised skin, and anytime they hurt themselves, that pain just continues. It never heals. And because people are afraid of disease, because of course they always are, even when it's not catching, I say as someone with a chronic illness, they decide to stick all these people, just quarantine them in Elantris. So as you can tell from the first sentence, something has happened to Prince Raoden, and he's been put into the city of Elantris. Meanwhile, Serene, who is supposed to be marrying Prince Raoden, turns up from the other kingdom she's come from. And Prince Raoden's missing, and she's a bit unclear about what's going on. And then we also have Hrathen. I'm trying to remember the pronunciation of all these names from the audiobooks. So he is this priest from this neighboring kingdom that's kind of very warlike. Can you hear those cicadas even through the window? Honestly, the cicadas are crazy today, which is very annoying because I'm trying to film videos today. Anyway, Hrathen has come. He's been told he's got 3 months, and if he doesn't convert the whole city within those 3 months, everyone's going to be killed by the powerful godlike people of the religion. People, gods, I don't know. We haven't learned much about the religion yet, but I kind of remember a little bit about it, and I suspect that might be some of the links into the bigger Cosmere. But I'm resisting the urge to look anything up because I want to try and work things out for myself. Because of course I do. Because I'm terrible at asking for help. Anyway, I'm going to be trying today to read a lot of this, take a lot of breaks from productivity where I read a chapter. I'm doing that thing where I read a chapter, do one productive thing. That's my goal for today. Then the audiobook that I'm going to be reading this week is Babel by Kuang. So this one as well, I've already started it. And I think I've read the first part of 5 parts. Basically, we've been following this Chinese orphan, and he has been taken to England to study up to be a translator, studying at Oxford. Kind of some quite tragic circumstances that lead to that. And the man that has saved him doesn't have entirely good intentions. I'm expecting this book to be quite a look at colonization and how translation can be used as a tool to gain power over other people. But so far we're following this boy. He's taken the English name of Robin. We don't know his Chinese name, I don't think. Anyway, he's taken the name of Robin, and he is studying to go to Oxford. End of book 1, he's just got into Oxford, made some friends, made some enemies, And also we're learning a little bit about the magic. I still don't really understand it. It's something to do with when two words in different languages are almost the same, but there's like some meaning in between them. You can capture that meaning in silver as magical power, which can then be used to like heal people or do other magical things. I don't entirely understand it, but I like the concept. And there's been some argument put forward that this magic is really only being used by the elite, whereas it should be being used to help all the other people in greater need than the rich, fancy people of the British Empire. Can't disagree. So yeah, I really liked the first part actually, but I'm still nervous about this because when it comes to the Poppy War, I really liked kind of the first half of the Poppy War up to when she got to school. And then when things went into more of the war and military part of the story, I enjoyed it less. And then just that series went downhill for me. I never read the last book. So I'm a little bit worried that even though I've liked it so far, that this was my experience with the Poppy War. So I don't know. I've heard that the pacing or the ideas at the end of the book are not that great, but I guess we'll see. I wasn't actually going to pick up anything else by R.F. Kuang because I didn't think her writing style was for me. However, I saw a bunch of people crying about how it made them feel like as white people they didn't have any value or something. I don't know. Anyway, but I guess as I continue we'll see more about what that book has to say. Otherwise, I'm also still trying to declutter my house in preparation for moving. Currently, my sofa in the lounge is covered with clothes. I'm very proud of myself. I went through my very full double wardrobe and cut it down to the clothes I think I would want to take, which is a very small amount. I'm going to try and live on those clothes for the next week or so and double check that there's nothing else I need to add. But honestly, I've just been keeping all these clothes that I never wear, which is ridiculous. Also, I'm going to try and list up some of the better pieces for sale this week, so we'll see whether anyone's interested in any of those. And I think this week as well, I'm going to try and declutter all the cupboards in my kitchen. For some reason, my kitchen has been scaring me, but really, I did 2 cupboards last night, and it wasn't that bad, so I think it won't be that bad. As well, we've had floods and cyclones so far this year here in New Zealand, but this week, touch wood, it looks like it's going to be sunny, hopefully, because a lot of people need some sunshine in order to recover. And personally, I would just really like a little bit of summer. I'm sure there's some more rain coming because there's a whole bunch of drama going on in terms of climate and weather. But a week of sunshine, that would be nice. Hello! So I have been managing to be somewhat productive the last couple of days. I managed to get a decent amount of Elantris read. I've also listened to a whole bunch of Babel, and I cleared out a cupboard from my kitchen and some video stuff. We're doing okay. I have realized though that if I want to list some of these things up for sale, I need to take photos of them all, and that is not something I'm looking forward to doing. But anyway, let me catch you up on my reading. So where am I up to with Elantris? Only up to page 200, and I realized this is like a mass market paperback, I guess, and it's like 600 pages long. So I'm only about a third of the way. I am really enjoying it. What I'm finding is as I read it, like nothing's happening that I don't remember. Everything I read, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. Like even the details. So I think actually my problem has never been that I haven't been paying attention to the details. My problem is just that I don't have a memory. And unfortunately, I haven't been very good about taking notes like I told myself I would. So am I actually solving my problem? I think I need to take some time to catch up on my notes so that I don't forget what's happening. So what has been happening in this book? It's actually really making me think again about my management book club that I wanted to start at one point, because this definitely has, like a lot of other Brandon Sanderson books, like a lot of management type themes in it. The culture that this priest comes from is all about like hierarchy and command and control. And then Raoden and Serene are really focusing on autonomy and mastery and purpose in terms of how they motivate people. I do think I have mixed feelings about Serene, because it's kind of set up for you to think of Hrathen as the bad guy and Raoden and Serene as the good guys. But I do think some of the things that Serene's doing in terms of her political machinations, she's sometimes quite disingenuous and manipulative. Always with the best of intentions, but I'm not always a fan of her approach. Whereas, interestingly, Hrathen is also trying to manipulate people, but he's almost doing it in a more genuine way. Anyway, I do think on this reread, I can see why some people don't like this book, because it is really focused on our main characters trying to win people over through like different kinds of influence. And it's not necessarily, or at least up to here, there's not necessarily a lot of action. I know there is more later in the book, but I almost think that's my least favorite part, because I don't tend to like action books. Anyway, 200 pages in, I'm enjoying it. I know the very first time I read this book, I got about halfway and then I was struggling, and so I switched to audiobook. So we'll see if that happens again. I should be able to get through a decent amount of this later tonight as well, depending how long it takes me to take photos of these things behind me. The other thing I've been doing is listening to Babel, and I'm actually really far through it. So I'm already 60% of the way through, like 13 hours into the audiobook. I wouldn't be surprised if I can finish this off tomorrow or early Friday. Is it already Wednesday? Oh, no. So I am quite enjoying it. I will say, like, it's a bit slow in some parts. The actual time they're spending at university reminds me quite a lot of the university in the Name of the Wind books, the Kingkiller Chronicles. Although I think, like, less is happening around their schooling. It's just like they're doing their schooling, they're learning a bunch of stuff, and there's not much plot. Other than that, there is a thing happening that I'm purposely not talking about because it would be spoilers. But even that, it's happening, but there's not much drama around it. Maybe a little bit. And as well, there's like this friend group keeps telling us about how great their friendship is, but then really only shows us times when they're disagreeing. And so it's always telling us one thing and showing us another thing, which I'm not a fan of. And it also, I guess I'm not connecting with the other characters as much as I would like to, because I don't feel like we're actually getting to spend enough time with them, other than when the main character's having some kind of disagreement with them. But anyway, at the end of the bit that I just read, they've left the school and kind of gone on this first trip abroad to practice translation. Things are not going well, and I know the end of this book starts to get dark, so I'm wondering if we're getting up to that part. I do think it has quite a lot of interesting stuff in there about colonization so far. Different characters expressing different views without the book necessarily giving you any conclusions at this point. And I quite like that approach, that it gives you all these different ideas and then just leaves you to think about them yourself. So yeah, so far I'm enjoying it, but I do think it's a little bit longer than it needs to be. Wow, it's so nice now that those cicadas have shut up. What was I saying? I don't know. I am enjoying it so far, but it is the end that I'm worried about whether I'm going to like it or not, just because of my past experience with reading Rebecca Kuang's work, and also just what I've heard from other people. But I'm also looking forward to the end, because I want to try and see what it was that made some people so upset about it. Anyway, I better go take some photos and maybe sneak in some more reading. Hello, so I took photos of a lot of those clothes, and then I thought that was annoying, but now I've started trying to list them. Also very annoying. And for example, like I have this pink Pikachu top, but the categories are clothing girls and clothing boys. But like a pink Pikachu top could be for a girl or a boy. Why are you making me choose? It doesn't say on the t-shirt anywhere whether it's a girl's t-shirt or a boy's t-shirt. Anyway, these are the pains of trying to declutter and downsize in order to move. So let me catch you up on my reading. I am actually very far through Babel. I only have an hour left of the audiobook. I just ran out of time to finish listening to it because I had to do these clothes listings and other things. I haven't even edited the video. I told myself I was going to edit today, or even read as much of this as I wanted to today. But I did go for a nice morning walk. Morning walks have been working out really well for me in terms of feeling active, getting lots of steps, and then getting lots of audiobook read. So, what are my thoughts about where we're at? Some things have gone wrong. It has kind of got darker, like a lot of people said it gets dark at the end. And I feel like probably a lot of the things they're talking about have happened unless it gets even darker. But also I don't feel like it's been that dark. Like, given the strong themes of colonization and the position that these, I want to say children, but I guess they're university students, but in a lot of ways they don't have the exposure to the world, so they are children. Given the situation they've been put in, you kind of expect the kind of things that have happened to happen. But I do also think, like, the way that it's been written feels to me a lot more like historical writing, like we're being told the historical events and like the activities that these historical characters did. And we're getting some of like their emotions and their feelings, but I don't feel like we're getting enough of that for me to really feel it. Maybe I'm just cold and heartless. Maybe I'm just desensitized to how awful the world is. I don't know. But it just feels to me like a lot of the time we're being told stuff that's not really that important to the character's journey. And that journey, like, is really interesting. Some really emotional things are happening and it's leading different characters down different ways of thinking. I think there could be a criticism here about certain characters and the way they're looking at violence as an answer, which is very similar to Rin from the Poppy War. But there are other characters who are putting forward arguments against violence. So the different perspectives are still being represented. And I think it wouldn't be genuine for violence to not be talked about as a feasible option in this kind of situation. It's so hard to talk about this book without spoilers. But anyways, I'm liking this story, but in a lot of ways it's also just like a historical retelling of actual events because the Opium Wars really happened. And isn't that like what the Poppy War was also based on, or like around that same time? Because we definitely have opium in the Poppy Wars as well, hence the name. Anyway, lots of similarities between the Poppy War and Babel. I'm sure people who like the Poppy War and the subsequent books would like Babel. I definitely am enjoying Babel more than I enjoyed the Poppy War, and especially much more than I enjoyed the Dragon Republic. I was so bored with that. But I think just because R.F. Kuang's writing is so based on historical fact, I think she struggles to write it as a fictional story rather than as a historical story, which doesn't mean it's a bad story. But I do think if there had been more done with the magic and maybe more of a twisty plot, that it could have been even better. There is like this thing that happens, and to me it was so obvious. And the main character had like massive clues dropped on them, and they were still like, no, what's happening? I don't understand. These are meant to be smart university students, you know? So anyway, I have babbled about Babel quite a lot there, and I have other things to do. Elantris, I think I've read about 100 pages since I last talked to you, but I'm not sure what happened since I last talked to you. I think that Hrathen, Sereni, and Raoden are all just continuing their plans, and they're pretty much just doing the logical next thing. I'm enjoying it because I know what's going to happen. I'm enjoying seeing things start to come together. I do have tomorrow my infusion, which means I go down to the hospital and sit in a chair for a few hours, and traditionally I'm terrible at reading and focusing during that time, but I'm going to take this with me and we'll see how much I can get through during that time. As well, I'm not sure. I like to walk there because I now get it at this hospital that's like a 40-minute walk from my house. I like to walk because it's a nice walk. But I think it's going to rain tomorrow, so I'm not sure. But if I do walk, then I'll have lots of audiobook reading time. I'll be able to finish off Babel. And I think I might start Flame of Sevenwaters next, which is the last book in the Sevenwaters series. But anyway, I'm supposed to be sorting out my shit so that I can get up early tomorrow and walk to my infusion. I need to work out like an umbrella or a raincoat or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'll catch up with you guys again tomorrow.
If you set yourself on fire, I never let you burn.
Hi, so I'm in bed because basically I got home from my infusion. I got really wet walking there and back. Not as much as I thought because it wasn't too heavy at that point, but it was just too cold. I've spent the afternoon in bed, but I do have my laptop with me, so I'm still being somewhat productive-ish. As well, it's now raining really heavily. I think I speak for all of New Zealand when I say we would really like the rain to stop now. Actually, that's not true. I think the South Island is having like a drought. Climate change. Not the best. Anyway, hopefully this bit of rain won't be as disastrous as some of the other bits of rain, but who really knows? As I've said before, luckily my house is mostly safe, or at least so far. But anyway, reading. So, on the way to my infusion, I did finish listening to Babel. And, I hated it. That last hour, that's what people were talking about when they said it gets dark at the end. I get it now. And I really didn't like it. It made me really angry. I just felt like it was really glorifying and romanticizing like violence and martyrdom. And that's not a message that I can support. And I thought the very end, sorry if you're shaking because I'm in the bed and I'm moving around. I thought the really real end of this was gonna like pull things back a bit, maybe offer a different perspective. But there was one line that just really clearly to me said that the message of this book is supposed to be that violence is necessary. And I think I need to add this to my list of books that I've read lately that just like give me no hope for humanity. Maybe I'm feeling that because of all the climate change disasters going on around, but I just feel like if we can't move past violence as a solution, what is the future? Anyway, so the ending, quite dark and depressing, but also I just felt like it was written in that really romantic, poetical way. And I think if you're going to go dark and depressing like that, I'd rather you just write it like straight, these are the facts, it's awful. I don't want these awful things to seem like something that someone should want. And maybe that seems a little bit hypocritical because I did just read like The Blade itself and I've read all sorts of other books and I generally like really dark stuff. But I just think like with The Blade itself as an example, the characters are doing really awful things out of necessity. But one, I feel like it's more justified because they really are put in situations where there was no other option. In The End of Babel, I think they had other options. They didn't even discuss other options. That made me annoyed that they didn't even discuss it. Because I felt like Rebecca Kuang just had this ending in mind. It's an ending that makes a lot of sense given it's set in the Tower of Babel. And I think she could have done that ending in a way that didn't glorify violence. But that's not the message she was trying to get across. Oh, and what I was saying about The Blade itself is in that one, like, people are doing bad things because it's necessary, but one, it's justified, and two, characters aren't made out to be heroes, they're made out to be flawed individuals, whereas in Babel, our main character is kind of made out to be heroic and brave. Maybe that's not entirely true. There is some questions around his decisions, but less right at the end, and I think that's the bit that needed to be questioned the most. And so when I got to my infusion, I actually spent probably the first hour of my infusion just like looking at reviews because I was thinking, maybe it's my racism, my skewed perception as a white person making me see this differently. But looking at a range of reviews, I can see there's quite a lot of people of color also saying a similar thing, as well as a whole bunch of other critiques, which honestly made me start thinking maybe I'd only give it 2 stars. I think I'm gonna balance it out at 3 because I did enjoy the beginning. I did think the beginning had some good ideas in it. I love the magic system, but just that ending. Oh, and actually, the original full title of Babel is Babel or the Necessity of Violence. I looked online and it seems like it's not always called that. Maybe it used to be called that more. And so I guess that kind of gives away that the message is going to be about the necessity of violence. But I just think, like, if that's what you're going to write about, it needs to be written in a more nuanced way, or, like, more fully look at the complexity of that idea. Otherwise it just feels like dangerous messaging. Anyway, I guess it does make you think about things, but the ending, not my favourite, and I can see why some people don't like it. The other thing that I've been doing is reading Elantris. Probably I haven't read that much since I last talked to you. Maybe 50 pages, but what has started happening is everyone's plans have started going wrong. Finally, everything's starting to go wrong, leading up to kind of, I guess, the big final action. And I kind of really like the way it's like things are going wrong for almost everyone. Or at least for all our main characters, things are going wrong. But again, I know some of what comes up next, so I'm excited to get to it. It's 8:15 now. I might actually give up on being productive for the rest of the night and just read. Reading is productivity, but also I don't need to be productive all the time. I just got distracted, but I'm gonna go and read as much of this as I can before I fall asleep.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop.
Hello, so it's a couple of days later, the weekend is done. I always seem to forget to come back to my vlogs after the weekend. Anyway, I did over the weekend finish reading Elantris. I really enjoyed it, as I expected to. I really especially liked remembering how things came together in the end, and so really being able to appreciate how it happens. Although, one thing I will notice with that is that I noticed that it's actually a little bit clunky because there's so much coming together at the end. I think when you're reading it for the first time, it's quite overwhelming and you're just kind of blown away with it. But it does feel very scattered and all over the place. And I also noticed one of the short stories that I'm going to be reading next month, The Hope of Elantris. In the synopsis for it, he says that there's plot holes that he had to take out of this because of that ending being like it is. There just being too much. And so the short stories fill that plot hole. I'm not critical enough, I guess, to have picked up on whatever that plot hole is. I imagine Brandon Sanderson keeping track of the threads a lot better than I am. Also, my whole idea of taking notes, I didn't do it, but I do feel like I paid more attention. And also, part of it was that I was who is Hoyd in Elantris? But you know what, he's just a stupid minor character that's barely even important. So I didn't really miss out on that. The other thing I will say about Elantris is it is very religion heavy, but what I was thinking about as I got near the end is that really, despite the fact that it's very religion heavy because we've got this priest who's coming in to try and convert this whole city, otherwise the people from this religion are going to destroy the whole city and kill all the people. So religion is a core theme here because we're trying to convert everyone from one religion to another. But there's actually very little talk about what either of the religions really believe. There's a few hints of things, but not really that much. And I mean, I don't think it really hurts the story, but what I was thinking about is one big criticism people do have of Brandon Sanderson is his religion, because he's a Mormon, Church of the Latter-day Saints or something, which, like every church, pretty much has some terrible beliefs. Especially I think it's quite homophobic, and it does the whole tithing thing, so people don't want to support Brandon Sanderson because they don't want their money going towards that, which, legit, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Personally, if I was going to do that, I'd have to stop reading a lot of authors, because a lot of authors believe in religions that I don't believe in because I don't believe in religion, and pretty much no religion is exclusively non-homophobic or problematic in one way or another. So I guess what I was thinking about with this is how the religion doesn't really actually get into any of the details of what the religion believe, and I still feel like a lot of people who are religious don't even spend a lot of time thinking about the things that their religion believes. Some people. Religion's different for everyone. Personally, not my thing. So it was also weird for me in this book when the characters are particularly motivated by their belief in God, and that's something that I can't really relate to, even though other than that, I think the characters' motivations are good. Anyway, I really enjoy this. I think if you like really complex fantasy worlds where the magic feels really integrated into the world and you like lots of different plot threads that all come together in the end, this is a really good one. It is very technical with the magic system. It's very focused on like the politics and the influence that different people have over each other. It's a little bit of action at the end, but mostly it's not very action-based for 600 pages. But I really liked it. I really wish, actually, going back to Babel, the other book I read in this blog, I really wish that Rebecca Kuang had gone less for historical accuracy and really looked at how this silver magic that she's created, that's actually an amazing magic system, like really developed that magic system further and looked at how it really would affect the world, and then use that magic system to really emphasize the themes that she was going through and to justify the violence that she was trying to support. I don't know, that I still don't support that, but I think she could have maybe got her message across better if she'd gone full fantasy. That's probably just because my preference is full fantasy. Anyway, I feel like I'm just rambling because it's late at night and I'm tired, but I really like this. Babel as well, you know, I really liked it. I'm sad about the message at the end, and I feel like it had the potential to be even greater. I think I probably am looking forward to the kind of things that Rebecca Kuang will write, like when she's a little bit further into her career. I think she has a lot of potential and she could write some really cool stuff. Oh, I actually have one other thing to tell you about, and that is Flame of Sevenwaters. I've listened to the whole thing, and it was fine. I'm glad to have finished the Sevenwaters series. It does kind of like wrap up a lot of the different characters' plot threads, but at the same time, like, the romance was, what the fuck, awful. Like, what was that? And the story, like, I guess, trigger warnings for like animal cruelty or just like animals being in pain. I did like the disability rep, especially at the end when there's like a hint of her getting like a magical cure for her hands, which were burnt when she was young and so she can't use them. I haven't really talked about what this book's about, have I? Maybe I did. So her hands are disabled after she was burnt in a fire as a child, and near the end there's kind of like an offer of the potential of a magical cure, and she's like, that feels too easy. And I think the way she reacted to it, one, felt quite realistic, but also like, I kind of hate when fantasy books just offer up a magical cure for a problem. Like, maybe that's wish fulfillment for someone with a disability, but it's also just feels so unfair to read about it when it's not something that's ever going to happen in real life. I don't know. Anyway, it was fine. I'm glad to have finished the series, but really looking back on it, I probably would say I think only the first two books are really worth it. Maybe the third one. I have realized, actually, I always thought for the Sevenwaters series there should be 7 books. There's only 6, and I did read it's actually 2 trilogies, so probably you'd be better to read the first trilogy and not so much the second one unless you like really just want to know what happens to all the characters. I mean, it was fine. It was fine. It just wasn't anything amazing. And actually, no, that romance, what was that? Anyway, I feel like this vlog is long enough. This update is way too long. But let me know what you've been reading this week. And also, if you've read any of the books that I talked about today, I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.